Hello and welcome to Bloke on the Range, and I'm here with Les of Polaris Worldwide Logistics, and we often get asked how you can bring individual guns in and out of the US. It just so happens that at this moment Les is in the middle of sorting me an export of two interesting rifles from the US to Switzerland, and we're hoping to set up fairly regular group shipments in both directions in the future if it works. So this is a very specific case. You've done a video with Ian here in Finland. They let us in, which was nice. You discussed generalities with him, didn't you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's discuss my specific case.
Sure.
So first thing that happens is I tap an email to Les saying, I'd like this, please. What happens then?
You picked out specific items on Gunbroker. I placed the bids. We won. I know the first time we didn't, but the next two we did win. I organized payment of to the vendors. The vendors shipped it to me because my company does have a federal firearms license. We put them on our books. I then reached out to your dealer in Switzerland.
Yeah, Matt of M46.
And he provided me the necessary import permit, and I provided that to the Commerce Department to get the export license from the United States. Once the license was granted, we went ahead and coordinated with Matt to let him know that we'd made a booking on the shipment. Took a little longer than normal, thanks COVID. But right now it is scheduled to get into the air in the next day or so.
So it's actually very, very simple if you put the right people on it at each end and then throw time and money at it, basically.
Yes, it's not a cheap process, unfortunately, and mainly that's due to regulations you have to comply with. You've got to have your import permit to start in the country of destination, in your case Switzerland. With that, I can then apply for the export permit from the United States. Once we have that, we make bookings with the airlines, and because it's arms, it's a whole lot of extra steps that have to be gone through to get it into the belly of the aircraft and get that plane in the air.
And this isn't just a service to people like me, this is a service you do for quite a lot of Europeans, isn't it?
Yes, anybody can reach out to us, and as long as your country's government will give you an import permit and what you want to buy is permitted in your country, we'll go ahead and arrange the acquisition of it in the United States and ship it to you.
Yeah. So in terms of shipping to individuals rather than to a dealer, because we did this basically, owner in the US, which may or may not have been a dealer, who will then have sent, if it wasn't a dealer already, an FFL already, he'd have given it to his FFL, who will have shipped it to Les, who is an FFL, who will then ship it via an airline. And in our case, I believe Matt will pick it up himself from the airport, which tends to be what he normally does rather than using an import broker. And then that comes to him, and in Switzerland we have import marking rules, so it gets import marked, and then I can acquire it from him on a permit. Do you ever do sales into Europe where the final destination is, where there isn't a dealer at the European end, where it goes straight from you to the individual?
We do have people that ask for that because they find which in their country is an exotic firearm or a very specific firearm they can't get any other way. And as long as they can provide an import permit for their country, that allows us to get the export permit from the United States government.
Certainly in the case of Switzerland, Chappie did it. He actually bought a rifle from Matt Larousseau of Fudbusters before he did Fudbusters, and that was done individual to individual. But certainly dealer to dealer is a lot less hassle, particularly when you've got partners at the US end like Les and your country end like Matt, who basically just put them in copy and say go, and then it just flows pretty smoothly. Now, in terms of bringing stuff into Switzerland, there is nothing you can have in the US that we can't have in Switzerland, but the other way around is not the case.
That is true. Due to a presidential executive order back in 1989, what's called assault weapons that don't have a sporting purpose are still basically banned. So some of the very cool Swiss rifles that we would love to have, like a PE-57, is very hard for us to get imported.
Well, in fact, the bulk of the ones that are cheap on the Swiss market are down-converted Sturmgewehr 57, so count as machine guns
exactly.
in the US. But so as you were talking during the weekend about a case where someone had taken their US firearms to Europe, including a bog standard AR-15, and then wanted to bring them back to the US when they moved back to the US, and they couldn't.
No, they cannot, because at that point they've left the United States, and in each of these cases the people had been living in Europe for decades at a time, and so much time had gone by that as far as they were concerned it was a new import of a US, even though it was a made in the USA firearm.
Yeah, that's kind of
It's bizarre.
bizarre.
Like all government bureaucratic rules, they really don't make much sense.
So anyway, if you are interested in this kind of thing, you live in Europe, for instance, and you're looking to acquire stuff from the US, we'll put the link, because you're not a gun dealer, we should be able to put a link in the description to Polaris, and you can get in touch with Les and
Definitely.
see what you can do. And then hopefully in the future, when we've got group shipments in both directions, there'll be opportunities for US residents to get firearms out of Switzerland.
Right. And I definitely suggest, if you can, considering exporting some firearms from the U.S. or importing them, that, if you're going to buy one, buy two.
Yeah. That's another point in general. So cost-wise from the US exporting, because there'll be costs at both ends. So from the US end, a shipment starts at how much roughly?
I would start your budget at $1,000. Now, the reason I say if you're going to buy one, buy two, is because I have to charge you for getting an export permit. Whether you put one gun on it or 100 guns on it, I'm still going to charge the same price because it's just one license. Anything beyond that, it's by weight and measure on the airlines. And to get over what the airlines charges their minimums, you can get into 5 or 6 guns before you start bumping that minimum.
So group shipments really do pay
Yeah.
off. Bringing a single piece across is quite an expensive endeavor for one gun.
Exactly, and a lot of the time when people want to import guns in the United States, the first question I ask is it of historical significance or is it just a personal item for you? Because generally if it doesn't fall in those two categories, the cost of shipping and acquiring, it's not going to offset what you would pay in the United States for a firearm that's already there.
And going the other way, we get asked quite a lot about buying 100 franc K31s in Switzerland and importing them. And people don't seem to believe why Edelweiss and others and Simpsons and people like that can be charging $600, because even if you were to do it on a personal import without passing via professionals like Les, you're not going to come out ahead in that.
No.
Because just the sheer shipping. I think Chappie's Mass 4956 ended up costing me about $600. And that was with Matt applying for the export permit and Matt doing the legwork on that for free. We're talking about two Matts here. Matt in the States. So ultimately, he thought he was going to come out ahead versus buying one locally because the prices were kind of high. But in the end, he really didn't.
Yeah, it's like I say, I always tell people it's got to be special, because one of the big things Americans do will go to Europe and find an M49/P210 at a great deal in a German or Danish gun shop and think they're going to import it, and say, but by the time they add all the charges on, you might as well just buy it in the States.
Yeah. So it's certainly in terms of what I'm acquiring, it's stuff that you just don't find in Europe, which actually is mostly American commercial stuff, to be honest. Well, in fact, what I'm bringing across is a bit of a meme gun, a Bushmaster M17S, a late one, and a Leader T2 Mark V for my Charles St. George collection. In fact, both of them fit into that collection. But why I have a budding Charles St. George collection, I don't know. Might be irrational, but I find it interesting. So anyway, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us, and hopefully you found this vaguely interesting. Thanks very much to patrons as usual who keep the channel chugging along nicely, and we're here for the COVID compliant remains of Finnish Brutality, Winter War, which was sponsored by and organised by Varastolik and also sponsored by Sarko. So many thanks to them, because it's due to them that we're both here.
Absolutely.
Les brought in his own rifle and rifle and pistol for Ian.
Yep.
For the match. Me and Chappie brought our own gear on a European Firearms pass, so just as hold baggage, which is a whole other story. Maybe we'll do that in another video. But yeah, thanks so much, and see you again. Bye.